Hello, this is Richard C. Wilson, and today we're doing a member spotlight interview with Dr. Ed Grels. Welcome, Ed.
Thanks for the invitation. Good morning, everybody.
Sure. So I've read a lot about your company and your background. Do you want to explain a little bit about what you're up to with your team?
Yeah, we have focused Cyvergenics on the whole concept of CRISPRs and gene sequencing and how they are transforming the healthcare system in this country. There's been quite a bit of research that was done. It starts with a Dr. Rosalind Jennifer Doudna, D-O-U-D-N-A. She is the developer of CRISPR, C-R-I-S-P-R, and it stands for Clusters of Regularly Interspersed Short Palindromic Repeats. The good news is, if you Google search her name, there are plenty of interviews with her by a variety of different news sources, as well as other cancer researchers. And a tremendous education can be obtained by any of you about this kind of work that we are focused on. So I would encourage you to take advantage of some of that, because it's very professionally produced on the internet. Some of the interviews are with noteworthy news broadcasters and with scientific researchers. This is a very cutting edge area of medicine right now. And
Right.
So that's where we have been focused.
Right. I remember when that technology first came out, people talking about the possibilities of what could get done with it. So if I understand right, your company is making those a reality, making those more practical, and, coming out with solutions that use, the CRISPR process for, gene editing, essentially. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great. Well, it's an exciting area. What do you think is really at the core of your value add process that makes this successful? So obviously you have deep intelligence and experience and knowledge about how all this works, but what's kind of your value add process at the core of this?
Well, we're blessed to have an open dialogue with, among other people, Donald Trump. We have some documentation of correspondence with him and other members of the vast administration and the National Institute of Health. So we have been talking to people there for quite some time about various aspects and applications of CRISPRs and gene sequencing. And what's interesting is that they have been and are very interested in it. And as I've indicated in the response I sent back, the focus here is also on trying to get through this process of CRISPRs and understanding it and trying to apply it before China does, because China has taken a deep interest in this same area, and they are doing about 31 clinical trials on CRISPRs right now. And we've seen early indications that, they may not be doing this in the interest of all of mankind, as we are trying to do. And I think it's no secret that they've been competing to try to overtake the United States in a variety of different areas, but this being one of them. And so there is, I think, some paranoia in the administration and throughout our government that China represents a serious threat to some extent, and we need to understand this and get to it quickly. That's number one motivation you should know about. Number two is that we see clear evidence that a lot of lives can be saved because this process can pick up serious problems early on in a way that most other approaches to cancer cannot. So, for example, right now we're sort of stuck with regard to cancer with a process that goes something like this. There's an initial test that's called a PSA test for men, and we'll just stick with men for just illustration purposes. And then there's a score, and if you get a certain high level of score, then it indicates you may have cancer in your system somewhere. And so you take that first step. Then let's say that the score is pretty high, which could be in the neighborhood of somewhere between 6 and 10. Then the next step you would be recommended is to take an MRI, which is a very serious procedure where you're literally put into kind of a mini submarine and subjected to radiation to go through your entire system and spot areas where there may be cancers. And so that's a they've improved it over the years, but it's still a pretty expensive and big, clumsy process.
Right. Yeah, no, interesting. I mean, I definitely see that in the public narrative, the concern over a little bit of a Cold War buildup over hacking from China or over technology or spying through TikTok, or over the government buying up rare minerals that are needed for technology or through CRISPR editing. It does seem like a common theme of something that is coming up that's hurting relations between the countries. It seems to have, at the very least, some kernels of truth, and by bold moves on China's part, which are strategic moves at the core, but could be a threat to our ability to defend ourselves against a far superior technology in one of these areas, right? That's part of what you're talking about.
Yes, indeed. And again, there is an interview on the web that you can look at where some of the ethicists in this country and other people involved in the CRISPR's work outline that a researcher in China did go exactly, beyond the pale already with 2 twin girls. And this guy basically was trying to intervene with their genes while they were being born to prevent them getting their father's disease, which was of some concern. And the entirety of the, shall we say, professional workforce involved, oncology people from around the world, scolded this guy for basically getting into a Frankenstein kind of a mode already.
Right. You don't know what the further second order complications of what that could do to someone psychologically or make them even worse off medically, right? I mean, there's kind of unknown implications, right?
Well, yes, and of course, if you're real paranoid, you can conjure the kind of stuff that Hitler was doing with methamphetamine with his soldiers, and you start thinking about super soldiers that will perhaps be structured so that they're a lot more difficult to fight with. And if you know anything about methamphetamine, you know that they were capable of working for 24, 48, even 4 or 5 extra days without food or drink. And many of them died. So,
right.
That's the kind of craziness we don't want to get into.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What would be the number one due diligence question an investor could ask a firm like yours if they're looking to invest in something like this?
Well, I think the first thing I would look at is how can this particular technology be deployed in a way that it could A, improve patient outcomes, and B, reduce healthcare costs. A few people ask that second question, but there's plenty of early evidence that we could really reduce the amount of money we're spending on healthcare if we were to take the approach of understanding the genes and how RNA, DNA react together. There's a group now working on the coronavirus for that reason. So I think that would be an important undertaking because right now we're spending a lot of money sending people to super specialists in hospitals where there's a lot of expensive equipment that's used, and the bills are in the sometimes hundreds of thousands. In fact, I'm sure many of your colleagues there understand that one of the leading causes of bankruptcy in the United States is treatment for cancer, heart disease, and other major disorders that can be very expensive and require a lot of technical, high expense technical intervention. So, as you might guess, the government is obligated to take a look at a way to try to temper the costs of treatment going forward. And of course, I spent many years with the insurance industry, and they, of course, are very concerned about this matter too, because they try to reserve everything they pay for as completely what is called medically necessary. And that translates to as efficient cost-wise as possible.
Right, yeah. Pay for as least amount as they can, essentially. So my final question is really, and then I'll ask how people can get in touch with you to learn more, is really what makes you confident in your ability to move forward with this company and do well in it? What's that confidence kind of built on?
Well, first of all, our CEO and founder is a genius, and he really has been looking into this for quite some long time, and he has connections with many of the leaders in this field already, and collaborations planned, and starting with Dr. Dudna, who is probably going to be on our board. As I've mentioned, he has been in correspondence with a host of other names you would recognize, starting with Donald Trump, because he's trying to give them all the clarity around the big picture here, how it could probably improve outcomes and at the same time reduce healthcare costs. So I'm pretty confident that we will get some investors. And if you guys wanted to take a look at a small investment, then you'd be in under the tent. And here is where I'd like to tell you about some other things that this cancer screening and technology can do. And I can send this article to you. It was published in the Wall Street Journal. But, just to give you a sense, for example, here's one where they did a gene sequencing on regular blood sample with a young woman, and the methylation process showed that the DNA of the mother had cancer. The baby or the embryos did not. So they spotted that, which would be very difficult to get with any other kind of an evaluation up front, other than this. And so with that, they were able to go in and deal with the mother's cancer right away, so that did not adversely affect the fetus when the child was born. That's just one small example of the kind of things that this technology can be used to do. And again, there are a host of other, I guess one other point I would make is that there is big money rushing at this area of medicine right now. There are approximately 8 or 9 companies that are already have valuations over $1 billion. Some of them go up as high as $30 billion.
Okay.
So that might frighten some people away, saying, well, all the money is already in. Not really, because, medicine is huge. And the subtleties and the improvements that could be made, who knows where we could end up. There could be wonderful cures for things we've given up on years ago.
Right. For sure. And it seems like things are just getting started in this whole gene editing space. My sister has her master's and works for a hospital in gene consulting by chance. And people are hired out of their, her degree program, and they have jobs by halfway through their second year in the program because there's such a demand for people with that expertise. I feel like it's just getting started from what I know about the space, but you obviously know 1,000 times more, but that's what I'm seeing from a distance, for what it's worth.
Well, even you should know that Bill Gates has even got money involved now. He sees the future of this, and he's committed to doing worldwide work, and I'm sure is seeking a way to apply this to very poor countries throughout the world that won't have the access and the technology and the money that this country has. So that's another outcropping, that could help the whole globe.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What is the best way for someone to get in touch with you? They might have a resource. They might know of a family office interested in this space, or an institutional investor, or have a question for you. What's the best way to reach out and start that conversation?
Well, I can give you my cell number. It's 949-439-9780.
Great. Thank you. And then what about in terms of a website or an email address, or just prefer people call at this point to reach out to you directly?
Well, maybe that first step, and what I would tell you, I can send you some information on our company, and you have the resume of the CEO, but, we can send you some other literature on the company that we've, some of the work we've developed on. But I would also mention that I work with a number of other innovative companies. So I'll just mention quickly one of them. Mm-hmm. It's a company I think I may have talked to your CEO, Ellie, about already, but it's an example. And that is, this is a company in the addiction medicine space. And this company has been working for several years now, developing a product that is a pain medication that is non-addictive, and secondarily, it can address your body's ability to feel high. So it inhibits dopamine in the brain with another drug that it's developed. So you get 2 drugs for the price of one. They're about 9 months out, and they're looking for the last money to get FDA approval, which, as you probably know, is a long ride through, but they're at the very end of it now. And that's a drug that could probably save many, many hundreds of thousands of lives over the next decade if we were able to get it. And the only reason I bring it up is I presented it to the National Institute of Health, to their team working on new drugs. And the trouble with government is that they have strict rules and regulations. And believe it or not, this is what they told us. They said, well, the fact that you have a pain medication mixed in with a drug that treats addiction was out of bounds for their awards of grants because you're treating 2 different things simultaneously. Now, I've had many visits to the National Institute of Health, and my tax dollars and your dollars are going there, and I can tell you that they are not efficient in terms of how they evaluate an opportunity to save lives. They lean towards regulatory process first and foremost. And I could tell you horror stories about the times I presented technology that could have advanced healthcare and medicine in this country.
Right.
And they just looked at us and said, "Well, we can't do that."
Right.
So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've committed. In fact, I got so involved and frustrated in the years I spent treating patients with addiction that I started my own private foundation, nonprofit, and put my own money in it. I was just disgusted with how slow they're moving.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it feels frustrating to the person who knows how much needs to be done or could be done, and then maybe the people controlling the purse strings don't understand what's needed or how much is needed or in what fashion. So I know there's a lot of inefficiencies in spaces like that just because of that disconnection between bureaucracy and, who's controlling the billion-dollar budgets and people like yourself, right?
Yes, and one final point I'll make on this, you can tell that I'm annoyed by what's happened, but you've got attorney groups all over the United States who've sued these multi-billion-dollar drug companies and sued many of them out of existence into bankruptcy themselves. And so those billions of dollars went mostly to the attorneys and probably to some of the poor souls who lost a family member. Right. And hardly a dime went to finding a cure for this problem. That's right. The insanity of it.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is backwards. Well, if anyone would like to reach out, why don't you give your phone number one last time, and then we'll ring off, and then maybe we'll have you back on one of our discussion panels or live events at some point.
Okay, you bet. It's again, it's 949-439-9780.
Great. Well,
I'm in Newport Beach, California. I'm in West Coast.
Okay, great. Yeah, we have a lot of members in California, and we're just setting up our new office in Scottsdale, maybe 5 or 6 hours drive away from you in Newport Beach, so not too far away. But yeah, happy to keep in touch. And if anyone in the Family Office Club has any questions or needs help getting connected directly to Ed or has a way to work together, obviously you can reach out directly or just let our team know, and we'll get you directly in touch. So thank you for your time here today, Ed.
You bet. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.